Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us again here at USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and we certainly appreciate you for taking the time out to join us for this program. This is a program where we talk about some topics that are difficult for people to express. We all go through various things in life, but I'm just grateful that we have our expert in-house today, Doug Lawrence, to join us for your story, your grief, your journey. Today, we're going to be talking about feeling angry or full of regret. How do we learn how to heal? Let's welcome international mentor and international best-selling award-winning author, Mr. Doug Lawrence, joining us from Canada. Hello.
Hello, and hello to our viewing and listening audience across the world. Thank you for taking the time to be part of our journey today. And we know that you're going to be able to take some great healing tips away with you by the end of the conversation that we're going to be having. And that's important. It's important for you to, when you invest in yourself and your personal care, so to speak, it's really important that you're able to take away from shows like this one, for example, that, it gives you that perspective on someone else's perspective on what it is that, I need to do in order to begin a healing journey and then to be successful in that journey itself. And so it's really, for me, it's important that you feel good about yourself when you leave the show today, because that's, for me, that's a sign of us working well together. So what I wanted to do was to have a bit of a conversation about feeling angry. And I think in order for us to be able to do that, we need to break that down into when do you feel angry and why do you feel angry? And so it can happen that, you're angry because your loved one is, their departure from this earth is imminent, and you're struggling with not sure of what should I do? How do I help? What about the rest of the family members and all of that? How do I deal with a lot of those particular things, and wanting to make sure that I am able to, provide them with the guidance that they need in order to be able to work through this. I went through a lot of anger when Deborah was sick, and then when Deborah passed away from cancer. And I thought that somebody up there really didn't like me or something like that, because she was taken far too early for me, because we still had a lot of journeys left that, we needed to explore. We just started traveling, and I was angry because, I saw what joy that brought to her and how it made her happy, and that was taken away from her. And, it's sad when that happens. And I'm sure if you look around and you ask yourself about or you see other people, even close friends and that are going through much the same sort of thing, you you have to feel empathy for them, because a lot of this is out of their control, and they're not really sure how to move forward with it. And when they go to move forward, can they address all of their sources of anger, and are they able to do the right things in order for them to be able to deal with that pent up anger.
Thank you, Doug, for setting the stage for the show and sharing that. It's, I really value the time that you and I have before the show as well to talk about some of the things that are coming up for us. And again, this is a place where we're just being real, and we're being real to be of service and in service to others. So you've helped many people on their healing journey, and you're going through your own healing journey. And there are always things that come up, even when we're through the process. If somebody gave us a checklist and said, hey, go through this list, and by the time you finish these 10 things, you will be healed, voila. But that's not what happens, is it?
No, not at all. I was just going to say, give me that checklist and I'll just throw it out the window, because there's no script to follow. And all that you have to go with is you need to, from your heart, you need to let your heart dictate where you're going to go and how you're going to deal with things. And anger is something that is really hard to shake, because I still go through periods of anger where I'm mad at myself because I could have done more, or in my opinion, I could have done more. I'm angry at myself because I didn't maybe reach out to some family members that I could have, to be able to share, with them what was taking place and all of that. Because I know I went through that with a little bit with my father, but with my father-in-law, who did not want any information shared about his illness or anything like that. He wanted to keep everything, to himself. And there was an underlying message that was there that, I made a vow to myself that I would never go down that same path, that was just not, as I called it, it wasn't fair to other family members to exclude, them from what was taking place. Because I saw how important, it was for family members to be included in what was taking place. My brother, his wife and son and wife drove from a northern community all the way to be here for the celebration of life. Didn't have to do that. But because, I shared with them what was taking place, they were able to, to make that journey. So when I look at the anger part, and then I kind of jump over and look at the regrets, there was less of a regret for me, because I was able to share what was taking place, how I was feeling, and how important it is or was for them to actually do what they did. It helped me with my healing to know that my brother and his wife, and their son and daughter-in-law were standing beside me as we were going through and celebrating Deborah's life. And that's an important thing to consider.
Thank you, Doug. Based on what you just shared, would you say that you are healed? You're close to being healed?
No. It's a journey that seems to go on forever. I may not experience the bigger onslaught of anger as much as I did before, but I have a ton of regrets in that I wish that I had some do-overs, some mulligans that I could actually do over, just because there's there was a lot of unanswered conversations that we never got to have. And for that, I'm forever, I'm full of regret. And every once in a while, that regret boils up sufficient enough that it gets me angry. And so, fortunately, the anger isn't the dominant one in that particular case, but it's still present, and it still requires attention, and it still is something that you need to deal with, because to kind of stuff the anger down, try to push it down, or put it into a room and lock the door doesn't do us any good whatsoever. And we need to be able to it's like acknowledging the fact that you need help. And you folks have all heard the story from me about coming out of the closet and extending your hand and saying, I need help, and so on and so forth. Same sort of thing with the anger, is that you need to be able to say, I'm angry and I need help to deal with it. I don't know how to deal with my anger. I don't know where my anger comes from, and I don't know why do I have to be angry? Why can't I be sad and maybe a little bit on the happy side, but predominantly, why can't I be sad and let life evolve with that in mind, versus having to deal with being angry all the time? Because anger is going to lead us to becoming depressed, and we're going to have all kinds of anxiety that we're struggling with, having to deal with that on top of our anger. But remember, the anger is going to fuel all of the other emotions that we're talking about.
So well put, Doug. Thanks for the way you described that. And just to add something in, I found the other day I was in my car and I was breathing very quickly, and I felt very anxious, and I thought, oh my goodness, what is going on with me? And I couldn't actually relate it to anything. But I assumed, and I'd love to have you weigh in on this, I assumed that something was bothering me inside, and it was coming up at a moment when I'm in a traffic light, for example. What is that called, and what do we do about it?
Well, some of those are triggers. So they trigger a response or a behavior based on what you may have encountered before. And so it's to be it's to acknowledge that these triggers are taking place, and then to have the coping skills in place to be able to deal with those those specific triggers. So it can be I'll use as an example driving by the hospital that Deborah spent from basically December till she passed in February in this hospital. And when I used to drive by there, I had all kinds of pent up anger. I absolutely hated to even drive by that particular building. And then I went through some counseling, some healing modalities that we used in order for me to kind of get my head wrapped around that. And I can drive by there now, and I reminisce more than anything else, but I don't become angry. I don't let it trigger other memories or other behaviors. I'm in a place where I'm okay with. That's where Deborah was. She was in good hands, well taken care of, and just leave it at that.
I think you're sharing something that many of us have felt and maybe haven't wanted to talk about, but I know where my father died in hospice was very close to where I am right now. And I don't take that road. I don't want to go by there. I don't drive by the hospital where he was before that. So I'm sure that maybe some emotions would be coming up for me that I've decided to just, hey, I'm not even going to go there. So my question for you as an international mentor is, we only have so much capacity and so much time to process and deal. So in the example that I just gave, it could be anything, but is it healthy? is it helpful to choose which triggers that we're going to address? Like, for example, if it's easy for me not to drive past the street where the hospice is that wrong? Should I be driving by it on a regular basis to deal with it? Or is it just okay to say, well, I love my dad, he's gone, I've accepted it? Or do I have to bring it up to myself by driving past there?
That's a good question. And the best response, I know that, excuse me, going through it the way I did was that I ended up doing some counseling and used one of the counseling or healing modalities that they use. So I went from being a person that was extremely emotional, had to actually physically pull over on the road and get control of my emotions because the tears were flowing and all of that was taking place. I didn't want to go through that every time. I didn't want to be the person that was going to try and find an alternate route. Having said that, that is a coping mechanism, but it's not the ideal solution. And so going through the counseling part and going through some different modalities, it was those things that helped me get to a place where I was stronger and more capable of going through or going by the hospital. So in your case, going by, the hospice and all of that. I know that what needs to take place is, as tough as it is to do that, you still need to do that because right now you have all this pent up emotion. You have all this pent up anger in most cases, and there'll be all kinds of regrets if you don't do something. So, you need to put a plan in place to be able to do that. Will there be other triggers that will come along and you'll respond in much the same way? Yeah, there probably is. I know for me, it was going by there. It was going by where we had the celebration of life, which ironically, was her old place of work, a hotel here in the city. And so if I get invited, say to somebody says, come with us, we're going for lunch at the hotel, and I go along, there's a lot of triggers there for me because I'm expecting Deborah to be waiting at the top of the stairs in the hotel for me coming there for lunch, and it's not happening.
So is it the more you go to the hotel that these feelings will slip away? Or is it that, why are you torturing yourself? I mean, there's two, I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah. Sometimes I ask myself, why are you torturing yourself? Just stay away.
Or could you say to your friends, could we go to a different place? Because this brings up feelings for me.
It could, but what it may also be is the solution to the problem is that especially if you're going with friends and that you've surrounded yourself with that safety net and it's going to it's not going to make it super easy, but it's going to be a little bit easier for you. I haven't stepped foot in the hotel now for, probably a year and a half. And every time I go by there to meet somebody and we go for a walk and to kind of clear our heads and stuff like that, every time I keep telling myself, you need to step foot inside and if nothing else, just let everybody know you're still alive and kicking, if nothing else. So, but I haven't yet stepped inside, the hotel, and I keep telling myself I need to do that. And I always find reasons not to.
Wow. It's a lot to process because in the meantime, you're still working. You still have a family. You still have yourself to take care of. And yet there's all these other things that are coming up. And in terms of feeling angry and having lots of regrets, this can be a common theme that has nothing to do with losing someone. It could be any number of things. And something just popped into my head was when I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 1991, I was really angry. Why am I getting this disgusting disease? Like, for someone who prides themselves on their looks, you give me the exact opposite. Why, God? Why? I mean, now that I'm older, I'm like, well, why not? And I see how my life has been benefited by having this disease, but we don't always get it right away. It took me 30 years to get it. So in the meantime, you got 30 years of anger and things that are unresolved, which can't be good for our health, can it?
No, that you've actually raised a great point, which is, well, anger is negative energy, and the opposite of that is positive energy. And actually, a lot of the preliminary research I did around cancer was that if we allowed our lives to be influenced with negative energy, that it could actually enhance the speed of growth of cancer in our bodies. And so I remember, in typical me, I go immediately to a story, but I remember when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, and every day as I was driving home from work, I would make a point of calling her to check in to see how she was doing. But more importantly, what I was wanting to do was to reinforce for her that she needed to think of this from a positive perspective, that, she's God's messenger, and, that for in her particular case, I kept telling her over and over again that, you are God's messenger, and what's important for us here is for you to stay as positive as you can, because that's going to help us in trying to corner the cancer and be able to beat it down so that we can get it out of your body as much as we can. Having said that, if, I tried to explain to her that if you're negative, you've already defeated yourself, and your cancer will continue to spread and grow, until such time as it wins the battle. And that's not what we want.
And I don't know if you mind sharing. If you do, you don't have to, but how did she react?
My mom's always was a good student, so she tried to stay as positive as she could, and from my perspective, it bought her some additional time here on this earth, and we went through a thing where she got to see her granddaughter get married, and that was by staying positive and being able to do that. That was important to her. So it was a matter of, how much work is it to actually try to stay positive? And I think for most of us, it's a challenge, but it's not something we can't take care of. And by doing so, just, you take a look and you think of, who really cares? Well, there was an elderly lady, my mom, who did care enough about her grandchildren that she wanted to see her granddaughter get married. So it was worth her effort to try and be positive the majority of the time.
Thanks for sharing that story. That's really touching. And it reminds me of one of our team members and friends, Red O'Laughlin. He's unbelievable. When you ask him how he's doing, it doesn't matter when it is, the answer is excellent as always. And if you think about it, every time if you answer that excellent as always, as just as I'm saying it, I feel like I'm lifted up, as opposed to I'm okay. I'm fine. I could be better. It's like lower, lower, lower. So maybe it starts with our daily routine of how we think about how we're doing. So if you call me on the phone and I said, how are you doing? And you said, excellent as always. I might think, wow, I want some of that to rub off on me. I want to feel excellent, and it might just happen. It's possible.
Well, and I'm going to throw the curveball here, but I, excellent as always. Is that a from the heart answer, or is that I'm going to tell this person what they want to hear, so they'll just quit asking me that foolish question because maybe I'm not okay, or maybe there's other things that. Well, maybe it's been somebody else that keeps asking me the question, but is not sincere. And I know Red is certainly very sincere about everything he says and does. But the when I take a look at others, around us, that's not always the case. And so, we have to, we need to be mindful of conversations in those particular cases.
I'm going to propose a third option from the ones that you just shared. What if excellent as always is a way for us to train our brain so that our brain thinks of us as being excellent, and so therefore whatever negative energy we have, it's kind of dissipated somewhat, and now we're walking into a higher vibration. I don't know, is that possible?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And it's a lot of times it's what we believe. So if I believe that I'm excellent as always, number one, I believe it. Number two, I'm probably going to behave as though that is the case. And number three, it's a matter of that can become part of those coping mechanisms, those coping skills that you would want to have in place to be able to deal with a lot of the things that we've been talking about this morning.
And I think it might be helpful if we could call Red on the phone and just get his answer as to why he actually says it. But now, so you and I are both laughing, right? Don't you feel sort of a lightness when there's laughter and smiling? Because we could easily just be, and I was like that on Saturday. I don't know what was going on with me. Somebody told me Mercury was in retrograde or this or that. So what about when we already are going through a loss and then I don't know how it works. I don't understand it. I believe it, but the universe is doing something and there's all these different energies that are beyond what we can control. And you feel yourself sinking into a low place, low vibration, low energy. Do we let ourselves sink, or do we immediately say, oh, I'm not going there. No. I'm going to actually do something to make myself feel better. What are your thoughts?
Because if you succumb to the lower energy level and you fall into that trap, it's going to be so easy to go back there every single time. That's going to be sort of your fail safe, not your place of safety, certainly by any stretch, but it's going to be a place that you will go because it's easier for you to go there than it is to, come across to the other side and be somebody who is focusing on the positive all the time and allowing themselves to embrace that positive energy with the full understanding that it's going to help you go places that you would obviously love to be able to go to, but just at that time point don't have the energy, the higher energy to be able to do so. But you do know that you need to go there at some stage.
Yes, I think it's almost like you have to dip into the well, but you don't want to go fully down in there. So here's a question I have for you. And I think there are probably people out there who could relate to this. And I've shared this before, but I really need to have you just weigh in on this in terms of feeling angry and full of regret. So when my father was in the hospital and he had been in there for a long time, and we had relatives who were going to be visiting, and he did not want to be visited in the hospital. And so the doctors said that he had to stay in the hospital, and he basically demanded that I get him signed out. And so we had a big fight about it, and I was furious with him. And he just looked at me, said, "You need to do this." And so 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm literally running around trying to find someone, and finally got him signed out in the morning. And I was so angry, I can't even tell you, because it didn't seem like the right thing to do. But it was his wish, because he wanted to see his family members and not be in the hospital. And then, of course, shortly thereafter, he ended up right back in the hospital. So my question for you is, because one day it will be us. What do we do if we are the family member who is caring for someone, and the person who's the patient is saying, "No, I don't want to do that," but the doctors are saying they need to do it? What do you do so that you're not full of anger and regret?
I do it.
Do which thing? Whoops, sorry. Do which thing?
I would check them out and let them come home, because we went through that. Deborah wanted to come home. She wanted to be here in the house, and she got to spend a little bit of time, but not as much as she thought. And we went through a lot. We had to do quite a bit of changes and stuff. Good friends came, helped build a ramp in the garage so that we could wheel the wheelchair in and out relatively easy. We had to bring in a palliative type bed, and she had oxygen, and all this stuff was going on. And all of that, all that effort to put all that stuff together I would have expressed, or I would have had a lot of regret if I hadn't done that, because I saw what it did for her, and the smile she just lit right up, just because she was able to spend the time at home, and she could have me make her oatmeal for her every morning. So that was important to her. And but it's the whole. I'm glad we did what we did by doing, going through all those steps. It's what she wanted, and I think if I were to reflect back now, if I were to think back, I think I'd be angry at myself if I hadn't have done as she pleased.
Again, thank you for being so honest and candid. I think these are really tough conversations that we're having, and I think it's good for both of us. I was saying, I hope it's good for audience members. I have heard from people that they really appreciate the vulnerability, because it's life and death is what we all have to deal with on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I think in what happened with me, with my dad, I also found out in the middle of the night when he was back in there. One of the nurses brought the computer, which was portable at the time. I'd never seen anything like that. And his test results were there, and she let me take a look at it. And it was, again, in the middle of the night by myself. And I see that he has lymphoma and he's going to die. And it was, what do I do with this information? Do I wake him up and tell him? Do I call my mother? And I just sat with it until the next morning. And I thought, I'm here for some reason. I don't know what the reason is, but I never got to speak to my dad because he never spoke again. So the answers don't come to me readily, but I feel that I was there for some reason, and I don't know what it was.
And you may never know.
Yes, true.
Right? You may never know, but rest assured that he knew that you were there.
Yes, I agree with you. Yeah, he did. He did. So what can we share with our audience members who right now they're going through that, whether it's themselves or a family or a friend? How do they act? How do they not act?
You have to, I think of it from the aspect that, I've learned a lot with Deborah's passing. I've learned a lot with the passing of my mom. And I've learned, a lot with the passing of my dad and my father-in-law. And every time somebody has passed on, there's been a message or a lesson to be learned from each one of those. And so my suggestion or my recommendation to our listening and viewing audience is that each and every time that you unfortunately have to experience what we've been talking about, there is a message that's there for you. And it also provides you with it can provide you with the coping skills that you need to be able to move on and to be able to deal with things in a different light than what you would if you didn't have those experiences to fall back on. So, you know, I would do it again if Deborah were here and said, you know, I don't want to go, I don't want to die in the hospital. I want to be here at home. And I would honor that. I would honor that request, knowing that, you know, she also was a very, very smart young lady, that she knew when it was better for her to be in the hospital than it was to be here with me, even though my oatmeal was better than what she got at the hospital.
What's the secret to your oatmeal, Doug?
I don't know what it was.
Did you use the packet or use the Quaker oats? What did you do?
No, made it from scratch.
Oh, from scratch. Amazing. Yeah. You could open your own restaurant.
No. Not going to happen.
Well, one more topic I'd just like to bring up and then have you read from your book. You mentioned this earlier, which is feeling safe when you're with a group of people. So you're going to the hotel, you're with friends. And here's what I want to challenge you with for that scenario is your friends could be in one mindset of, hey, we're finally getting them out, we're going to have a great time. And you feel emotional or you feel triggered, and now you're not in the same energy level that they are. Maybe you have a smile on your face and you're acting like everything's excellent as always, but inside you want to run to the restroom and just start bawling your eyes out. So are you really safe in that scenario?
You know, I think you are. I think I know I would feel safe at going to the hotel, and, you know, I would be somewhat guarded in my conversations, and I may very well set the expectations as, you know, I appreciate you folks taking me out for lunch and that, and I know that you're probably seeing this as an opportunity to get me back into, you know, the circle, into, you know, socializing with everyone. And I just want you to know that it's still a struggle for me to do so, but because you are my inner circle, my close personal friends, I do feel safe in, you know, in doing what we're doing for now. But, you know, please respect my wishes. And if we need to talk about Deborah, you know, let's do so in a manner that honors her, and it isn't, you know. And having said that, I keep thinking of all the different times since she passed that I've gotten together with some friends, and it ended up being a storytelling time together where we shared different experiences that we had with Deborah and all that sort of stuff. And actually that became, you know, now that I think about it, that became my safe place, my safe environment, because here we were all sharing something in common, and that was Deborah.
That's beautiful. I think I'd like to also add, if I were the friend you were going out with, I would say to you proactively, Doug, I have so much respect for you for doing this, because I know this is putting you in an uncomfortable position. So I want to let you know, I'll let you dictate the conversation today. I'm not going to pressure you. And if you feel at some point it's too much, just let me know and we'll leave. Or if you feel you need to leave, like, set the expectations that, hey, this is okay. You're okay. I'm here for you. You let me know what you need.
Yeah, and that's perfect. That's ideal. That's the ideal situation to take place, where it's respectful, and at the same time it's honoring Deborah as well, or you know, in this case, Deborah. Yeah,
definitely. I'd love to have you close us out with reading something from your book. You Are Not Alone, available now on Amazon.
There we go. Oh, go this way. So I actually have some key points that have surfaced in my research and from my practice of mentoring is that organizations should have a workplace mentoring program in place. Organizations should have a mental health support program in place. Organizations need to have mentoring as part of the support structure. Organizations need to invest in training to make sure that their mentors have the tools to be successful, as what they do is life-changing not only for others, but for themselves as well. Mentors are able to provide life-changing guidance and must therefore have the knowledge and skills to do so. And as you read this, you are likely saying, well, what if we don't have any of those things in place? The answer is simple. Without workplace mentoring in place, your employees will not reach the full potential that they could. Without mental health support programs in place in the organization, the employees will not reach the full potential that they could. Sick time will increase, productivity will decline, outcomes will become more tragic over time. So that gives you just an idea of how important mentoring and mentoring and mental health. That little excerpt there just gives us all an idea of how important that is.
That's an excerpt from You Are Not Alone, written by Doug Lawrence, founder of TalentC, and he's an international certified mentor and international best-selling author. So he's here because he wants you to connect with him. You can reach out to him on LinkedIn as well. And you can also go over to our YouTube channel, USA Global TV and Radio, and you can look for the playlist, Your Story, Your Grief, Your Journey. And Doug, we're coming right back with our next show, Stories of Hope, Inspiration, and Overcoming Adversity. Final words for our audience, Doug.
Just, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. And I sincerely hope that we were able to provide you with some of the coping mechanisms you need to have on your healing journey. And take care.
Thank you very much. All right. The notes have Doug's contact information if you happen to miss it. We'll be back in just about 20 minutes. So please stay wherever it is you are. We'll see you soon. Bye. Thanks, Doug.
Yeah,
Bye, everyone.
bye-bye.
Bye.